With Vraska and Jace returning, here is an explanation that we have currently for why every one of these planeswalkers were able to become not completed after the events of Martian Machines. Now, one big one to get out of the way is that the way that the Phyrexians were able to start completing planeswalkers by allowing them to retain their soul, which we see the ramifications of even during their stories, where they start questioning what's going on more than a classic Phyrexian does. But the way they were able to keep their spark while being a Phyrexian was they still have their soul, so that once that Phyrexianization was removed, or at least stunned during the cancellation of Phyrexian being removed to a different timeline, they're able to, retain their soul and are still alive. But as we get into it, this is what we know so far of why they were able to remove that Phyrexies if they were able to. Jace was stabbed by Luxior, and then on top of that has the ability to put his mind into a pocket mind dimension in his brain. We haven't fully seen the ramifications of all of this, though he does still have socket pockmarks all over his body due to the tentacles. Vraska, on top of having her mind being implanted into a little pocket due to Jace, also was hit by a sonic de-Phyrexianizer gauntlet that Ral made in fighting her. Now, he made this to fight against regular Phyrexians, and when he would use it against them, they would just die because they didn't have a soul to remain. But when he used it on Vraska, it was able to remove a lot of the Phyrexian oil within her body, or enough of it where she was able to fully heal herself after the fact. We're still learning all the ramifications on how that happened. Nissa, along with the Johnny, which we'll get to in a second, was healed using the power of Karn, sacrificing his spark alongside Maleria, using her magic and sacrificing her life to remove this from her. I mentioned Ajani also had that happen to him. People did think that her losing her spark was another ramification of that, though we haven't seen that be true, that losing your spark or planeswalkers in general losing their spark is something different than why they aren't Phyrexian anymore. Luca died. He got eaten by Vadrug. And it's possible that no one remembers who Luca is because Vadrug has the ability to eat things until no one remembers them. And kind of that's what's true of the magic ability. No one remembers him. Nihiri was blasted specifically by Linvala with a massive dose of Halo energy, which is like angel energy, which is like the entire story established is meant to be able to fight Phyrexies. At the same time, she then ripped all of the metal off of her, and that has left a lot of the scars. These scars are still there. Her main trauma response is to be really mad at that, though, and is probably creating an anti-planeswalker faction to start hunting planeswalkers down. Tamio was murdered, was not healed by Phyrexies, though there is a scroll, like spirit ghost replica of her that is like, has her knowledge, but isn't, it doesn't have her soul. And as I mentioned, Ajani was able to be healed using the power of Malira. Now, there's a lot of discourse on there are no ramifications to the story that happened, and part of it is because these planeswalkers each either died, were a character that was meant to kind of die, or were healed what feels like a low-stakes reason of being healed. Now, I do disagree with that because most of the things that I've established have been established within lore. Even the ability to use sonic weapons against Phyrexians was something that was established way back during Brothers' War. The original Brothers' War, not even the return set. Do I wish some of this was done perfectly? No. Do I wish there was a second story during all of them that showed Nissa getting completed? Yes. During that completion, do I wish they established that to be able to do this completion, they also had to centralize the control over all of Phyrexia so that when they got locked in a pocket dimension and everyone turned off, that made more sense than what we've seen before. Also yes. But it's been pretty established through what lore has been released that this is what happened. And the Planeswalkers keeping their soul thing was heavily established. When you read the stories, almost like, look at Vraska's story, literally every other paragraph is written in different fonts to signify when her actual soul versus the Phyrexian soul is talking as a POV character. And then beyond that, when people talk about ramification, what's happening, the desparking of most Planeswalkers in the multiverse, the fact that the Omen paths exist and are causing problems, though opportunity, and you can point at a marketing fact that you get to have legendary creatures, characters that people relate to more due to the fact that they can be your commander and commander, is like a negative, which I disagree with. I think the ability to see the continued stories of characters you love, regardless of us having to go back to their home plane every 8 years, is a much more valuable way of telling stories, continuation with characters we like, than like only having to be able to tell stories on these specific Planeswalker cards that are generally disliked, looking at Jace, because of their gameplay mechanic being a little toxic towards the more casual environment, especially because they're only at Mythic, meaning that you can only witness these characters if you get lucky opening a box. Other ramifications, there's a bunch of characters died. I mean, I mentioned Tamio and Luca, but you have Tybalt, also dead, didn't get a Planeswalker card, another complaint I do have. You have the Kenriths, you have Angelo and multiple of the leaders and there are places we haven't actually found out the full ramifications. You have all of the deaths that happened on Ravnica, including the ramifications of that, which was Tristani going crazy due to her fending off the Phyrexian invasion into the world core, fighting off the world tree, causing her to murder multiple named characters, especially in and up to and including Teza and Zagana. I'm mentioning Zagana. I almost didn't. But yeah, I think that you know, people are right now really annoyed that like Jace is back and still has a spark and nothing seems wrong with him, when like him setting up a villain arc where him and Vraska are going to bloop around doing Team Rocket shenanigans, stealing stuff for some greater evil plan, is the beginning of seeing the trauma caused to Jace through this process.